go
Fair
over
enough.
here. I'm gonna go over here and introduce
If he starts shaking his leg, I'm leaving.
Hi, everybody.
My wife called this
You know who I am. I'm surrounded by experts tonight. We just got off the phone with KP, and we're going to end up on his show. So make sure you watch it next week. Also with even more people. We matched a record tonight. No, we set a record tonight.
Yes, that said it.
Said it.
Since this is
Definitely
something,
a record.
right?
Yep.
Since this is something a little bit different, I'm going to kind of describe what we're doing here to you, the viewers, and then we'll let these guys introduce themselves so you know who they are. And this would be a really excellent show for you to ask questions if you have any about model railroading, and you'll see why in just a minute. You may recognize some of these people already. So what we're going to do is, wait, I just said what we're going to do, right?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to go off camera.
Cut.
Yeah. I'm going to go off camera because I look better over there. And then these guys are going to take over and just talk about some modeling stuff. It's something different for you. I hope you enjoy it.
Can we swear?
It's Facebook.
Well, this is
Okay.
actually YouTube. Try to keep it as family friendly as possible.
Keep it as a PG-ish.
But I will say one thing, that I'm not responsible for anything they say. So now you can.
Oh, now I can swear?
Now you can swear.
Okay.
This guy's a loose cannon.
So we're gonna go PG-13. We can get one F word in
If
here.
there's any
We'll start with you,
parents
Chris.
watching, turn it off, or make sure your kids aren't in the room.
Earmuffs.
These guys are crazy.
Earmuffs on.
Yeah. So why don't we start with you, Eric?
Oh,
We'll go
okay.
around the table.
We're going to start with Chris.
Yeah,
Oh.
Chris.
Okay.
Start with
Let's
Chris.
chance
Start
him
with Chris.
Okay.
swearing.
So I am Chris Brimley. I am the vice president of Exact Rail. I have a small 1 by 7 foot N scale layout called the Hudson Terminal.
It's not small, it's whopping.
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 Oh, we also have a live audience. Yeah.
Send it!
There's a live audience, so I'm not responsible for them either.
End stream.
It's better than a dead audience.
Yes, sir. They smell better than a dead audience. Please proceed,
Applause,
sir.
please.
I don't know what else to say now because I've totally lost my train of thought because John interrupted.
No, he did.
Oh, Alvin interrupted. No.
Your walking
He sent it.
model layout.
My whopping layout.
Tell us something about the Hudson Terminal.
So the Hudson Terminal is a fictional subsidiary of the New York Central in 1955 Manhattan. It's a rail marine operation. Everything comes in via car float, and it is modeled after a few different terminals in the New York area, such as the Baltimore and Ohio 26th Street Yard, the Erie 28th Street Yard, and this is not chocolate.
That's the biggest
It's
Hershey
caramel.
bar ever.
And also the Fulton Terminal in Brooklyn. So I'm working on making it so I can run the layout in the 70s under Penn Central.
I have since noon.
Adam's up.
Okay, Adam, you're up.
I'm Adam Pinollis. I was just walking by outside and seeing pizza coming up, so I decided I better follow it.
Alvin, what kind of pizza was it?
Legit.
Yeah, he went upstairs.
Oh.
It was legit pizza.
But anyway, for real, I'm a conductor for Amtrak out of Salt Lake City on the California Zephyr. That's what professionally and unprofessionally modeled the Rio Grande over Soldier Summit in 47 to 53. Have about a 25 by 23 N-scale railroad. And I operate a business doing decoder installs, custom paint, and decoder sales called Prospector Models.
Oh, it's on me, right?
Yes.
Who are you?
Can I say something before you start, Chris? Something else that might be interesting to people watching is that Adam was the conductor on the trip last year that I took to Salt Lake City on the Zephyr. I thought that was kind of neat. You can see the video at, what was that, the N-Scale Convention?
Yeah.
Something or other.
Yeah.
He doesn't appear in the video, but I found out later, and I thought that was pretty cool.
And I don't appear for a reason, mostly because I knew he was there.
Well played.
Yeah, please proceed, sir.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a train geek, and I like the
Chris.
Southern
Hi,
Pacific
Chris.
in 1985, kind of like the guy next to me to my right. So I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, there's also a little connection with Ather in there. You might just want to mention.
Do you work for Bethlehem Steel?
Well, I like their products.
Okay.
Steel.
So, Joe Fugate, I
That's-
am the publisher of Model Railroad Hobbyist magazine, been publishing since 2009. But as far as the hobby, been in the hobby since 1967. I modeled the 1980s Southern Pacific Siskiyou line, which is a secondary line. It used to be the original main line from California to Oregon, but in the late 20s, they actually built an alternate route over the Cascades down through Eastern Oregon into California, and it has fewer curves and less gradient. So the Siskiyou line became a secondary route, essentially a branch line. But here's a branch line that I lived next to as a kid, and when I grew up, I would see 100-car lumber trains with 5 and 6 diesels on the front, mid-train helpers, 3 and 4 mid-train helper diesels. This is a branch line operation for the Southern Pacific. So it, as far as I could tell, it looked pretty mainline to me. So it was pretty impressive. So I modeled that in the 1980s, and I have like pictures of the 1980s trains, again, 100-car lumber trains, 3 and 4 unit mid-train helpers and 5, 6 units on the front. So it was big time railroading. So I modeled that. I did have a layout that I'm now in the process of dismantling, 26 years. And I'm now rebuilding the layout using all the latest techniques and using a method I call TOMA, which is the one module approach. And the idea is to take a lot of well-known modular methods that are used for exhibit layouts and adapt those for home layout use, because there's not been a lot done around you building home layouts using modular sectional methods.
And the idea behind that was so that people would have a layout they could transport in case they needed to move or something, right?
Right. In fact, I'm planning to do that. I'm planning to reload. That's sort of why the existing layout ended up getting dismantled, is because we're planning, looking at forward at our retirement planning. And so we're talking like 10 years out. But I said, I'm working on a dumpster fodder in the basement if I know I'm going to move. And I've been talking about all this sectional stuff. So why don't I take the existing layout out? It's 26 years old. A lot has changed in the hobby in 26 years. A lot I would do different now in terms of how I built the layout. Still do the SP in Southern Oregon in the 1980s. I like that venue, but do it differently. And I've been preaching in the magazine about how modular methods for home layouts were really good. So I could do it myself. And then we'd have the house refinished, basement, so we could sell it. And then I could start the sectional Siskiyou line and then just take it with me when we move.
There's not too many people out there that can start a lifetime project like you did, Joe, and tear it all down and then start all over again. So
Usually people are forced into that situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
doing it on your own does.
And obviously, I build a lot on the existing layout, bridges, trees, structures, so, and of course the rolling stock and locomotives. So I'm saving everything I can from the existing layout. But yes, and I'm documenting the new TOMA Siskiyou Line 2, I'm calling it, as we go. So there'll be, articles in the magazine. I'm probably do some live videos like this. In fact, I did one live video of the dismantling of the old layout.
Was that on MRH, the YouTube channel?
That was on the MRH YouTube channel. Yes.
Okay. By the way, if anybody has a YouTube channel that you want to plug on the live thing, please feel free.
What about Facebook
Our
page?
Facebook
Sure.
page,
Facebook
yeah.
page.
What about other podcasts?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Plug it.
Mahler's Life. Get on there, listen. It's us listening to you, listening to us.
Listening to you.
Listening to you.
Listening to us.
Lionel, I know you're watching. Love you, man.
Hi, Lionel.
Adam, say that again, just clear.
What?
Modelers.
A modeler's life. That's one L, like Lionel.
Yeah,
Not two L's.
Lionel's
That's
Train
2 L's.
podcast.
Lionel. It's
Not consecutive.
you know what? I'm messing up on the podcast all the time too. I can't do it.
Everyone's a comedian.
And then back to Chris. Chris has a page.
I have a Facebook page for my shelf not my Beanie Baby shelf, but my Hudson Terminal shelf. That is the Hudson Terminal on Facebook.
And you have
Nice.
the whole process.
Yeah, I've
documented.
documented the layout from the very beginning when I started at the bench work, and 8 years later, it's looks complete, but yeah, it's not there yet.
Something I'd like to say about the Hudson Terminal. I had a chance to see it.
Talk on
This
stream when you're chatting.
do people really want to see me?
Yeah, they do.
Get over here.
We can actually
Squeeze
see
in.
there's a person.
You can
Sweet,
sit on the
man.
chocolate bar.
There you go. Very
Yeah.
good.
The world's biggest chocolate bar. Something I want to say about the Hudson Terminal, because I had a chance to see it earlier this week. I think it was on Sunday.
Something like that.
On
Yeah.
Sunday, we went over to Chris's place to do a layout tour. So there's going to be a layout tour sometime, probably around September, because I have some other stuff in the pipeline still.
Yeah.
It's a really impressive layout. And one of the neat things about it, which you'll see when the layout tour comes out, or if you go to the Facebook page, is that Chris was a furniture builder, and you can see it in the craftsmanship of the layout. So it's just a neat thing to see, and I think you'll enjoy that one. But we should probably go to Jeff next, because you guys have been sitting here for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back off the camera.
Definitely. Oh, that brings back memories. I'll tell you about those later. Jeff Schultz, an NMRA staffer. I'm technical assistant, first looks and new products, and getting into the whole marketing thing as well. So I'm kind of the go for do everything guy now. At home, I model basically a freelance Genesee and Wyoming line. We've got the Willamette and Pacific and the
Utah
Portland and Western merged together into the Portland and Western. I decided to make mine the Willamette Western so I can do my own thing as well. So it's a partial prototype through the Willamette Valley and HO scale.
But it has the Genesee look, right?
Yes, it's got the Princeton Tiger paint job. So bright orange locomotives with black stripes.
Neat.
Day job, I work for a telephone company in the central office, making sure that people's internet and occasionally phones work.
So it's your fault.
Yes.
My job is to fix it.
Oh,
It's generally
Not to
your
break it.
fault that it breaks.
I think you're up, Eric.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Eric Hansman, and I'm a new addition to Model Railroad Hobbyist. I'm an editor at large, learning the ropes, helping Joe and Jeff with the issues, and hammering articles into shape. I've been in the hobby for a long time. I've been a prototype modeler now, probably about almost 20 years. My latest layout, I modeled 1926, so I'm a little different from everybody else at this table because I model an era that few people living today remember. Also, all the railroads then were completely different looking than what most people understand them to be after World War II. For instance, yes, they were all black and white. The Pennsylvania Railroad had no keystone.
It was black and white.
They had
It was
no
black and
keystone
white.
and black and white. Yeah, Tuscan red, that was later. It was
Model
black
it?
and white in
Do you
1920s.
model it in black and white?
No,
I've actually discussed about doing an actual layout and modeling the whole thing in black and white.
Monochrome layout.
Uh-huh.
there was a gentleman I met.
Someday I want to try it.
I met a guy in Connecticut, a Western Maryland modeler who works in theater in New York City. He was going to do something like that.
I gotta beat him to
15
it.
years ago. You better.
I better.
there's going to be a race.
The first
gotta
black
go.
and white. Yeah.
We got to go.
Okay. Bye.
Hey,
My
so,
layout.
So I want to let you guys. Are you done?
Not quite.
No, go ahead.
My
I wanna
layout,
hear more.
my last layout is a 10 by 16 HO scale switching layout, and it's based on the B&O Wheeling Freight Terminal. So it just serves the freight house, which was built in 1850 something, and a small team yard. And when I had operating sessions, we would move 100 freight cars in the session, 50 inbound, 50 outbound. I had two-man crews, and we'd work for about 3 hours to move the freight and deliver the goods. This was basically the UPS hub, one of them in Wheeling, West Virginia. There were actually 3 freight houses and team yard areas from 3 different railroads right next to downtown in Wheeling, West Virginia back then. We forget how important railroads were in that era before decent highways, where
Or
everything
airplanes.
or airplanes, where everything had to come in by rail.
even how important they still are.
Well, yeah,
I've driven
sure.
through Wheeling, West Virginia. The railroad is still very important, and it's better than the roads.
So that's what I do, and I'm planning a new layout based on a branch in Pittsburgh that served the H.J. Heinz plant. I'm looking forward to that.
Great. I just want to let you guys know that you've now been referred to as the Roundtable of Model Railroad Knights.
Was that with a K or just an N?
Someone watching is as corny as we are.
So we're a round table sitting around a rectangular Hershey bar.
Yes. And there's lots of debate as to what's on the table. Yeah.
We'll probably
What's
get
in the
into that
box?
later, yeah.
And
We'll
also,
reveal that
there's,
later.
a lot of comments and talk about
Chocolate.
N scale.
Yeah.
So-
N scale's dead.
N scale's dead.
I forgot to mention that I have a blog too, designbuildop.org, and I run a Facebook group that is all focused on pre-Depression era railroad modeling, and that's the name of the group too. We almost have 1,000 members of the group.
So what we carefully did was make sure that we represent pretty accurately the demographic of the hobby, because about a third of the hobby is N scale and 2/3 of the hobby is HOC.
And we're lost.
I just got
Lost
lost to the
in
N
the
scale
hobby.
camp. That's pretty cool. Right on, man.
So when is Athearn getting back into N scale?
What are you talking about? We just put out 6 new products in N scale.
So
they think the big box is an Athearn what's in the box guessing game.
Ooh, that's a good guess. Wow. What's their guess?
yes.
Here, let me look.
Alvin,
No
you may need
guesses
to label
came with
this.
that, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So are we getting any questions?
Or we're just getting heckled.
Yeah.
It looks like a lot of heckling.
Can we heckle back?
If I could take an alibi,
Yeah,
since everybody's naming their YouTube pages,
Yeah.
Facebook pages, and whatnot, mrhmag.com. Yes, it's the MRH website. Go over to the side, hit recent posts. You'll find our forums and blog posts. And I've been blogging the National Train Show and the National Model Railroad Association convention all week. I've been staying up past midnight each night to do this, so please, somebody go read it.
Well, I would say he's done a fantastic job.
Very good job.
I think he's taken a picture of just about every booth at the train show. And I suspect the way you're going, you're going to try to take pictures of every module or layout that's set up too.
Attempting. That is tomorrow's task.
I think there's some
You're
N-scale
back.
stuff.
I'm back.
Yeah, there's some N scale.
I stepped back in for a second because I wanted to pat Joe here on the back for doing such an awesome job promoting the hobby. Because
Yeah.
this is a conversation. This is a conversation that I think we've had
Yes.
that we share, and that's what we're trying to do, promoting a hobby, because it's a very valuable hobby and a very cool hobby, and you can learn everything by doing it, and there's a million ways to enjoy it. So pat on the back to you, Joe, for what you're doing
Okay.
and what you've
Thank
done.
you. Thank you.
Please proceed,
John.
sir.
So we're open to questions as
I have
well.
a question for
Good.
Adam from Lone Wolf 777. Says, when will Amtrak start allowing steam locomotives to run on their line again? Because you make all the decisions. So.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, if it was up to me,
Question.
we could do it'd be done. It's
Yeah.
done. Give me a couple more days.
It would be sent.
Make it so, number one.
Well, does Amtrak even have any control or any say? Because they don't, other than the Northeast Corridor, my understanding is that they don't really have a line. They're running on
No,
the-
Amtrak is all guests of the host railroads,
Right.
being most all the class ones.
But didn't they used to do the insurance for steam excursion trips and have a
maybe-
Genesis on the back
Maybe
end
that's what he's
normally?
talking about.
Honestly, I'm that's
really know.
above my pay grade.
I figured it out. What you do is you make a big plywood cutout of a P-42 and put it over a steam locomotive, and then there you go. You can run steam on it.
And if you guys read between the lines, that's Athearn's next new thing.
Yeah.
It is a GE product, so the smoke wouldn't be totally alien to it.
The occasional flame out of the stack.
They want to know what's new in N scale from Athearn.
We got the N-scale big boy coming, and that's been a popular request. We're doing the promontory version. So
And the other 5?
the other 5 are we have our entire line of containers. We have the ACF 4600. We have the Pullman Standard 4427. and we're going to be doing second run to the SV70s.
Will any of that stuff end up on N-Scale Friday? That's a question from the audience. N-Scale Friday is a program on TSG Multimedia where we show.
Well, how much are you going to
N-Scale
put on this chocolate bar?
Yes.
stuff. You can eat the whole chocolate bar if you send stuff for N-Scale Friday.
Lots of
All
fiber.
right, that sounds delicious.
I think in fairness, we should also ask Chris too.
Yeah.
What's new?
What's
N-Scale,
new?
What's coming?
Yes.
What's new? What's
N-Scale.
N-Scale.
What's appearing on N-Scale Friday soon?
So
Exact
we
rail.
just kind of teased at the N-Scale convention and then officially announced this week a new run of the Evans 5277 box car in N-Scale and 6 all-new paint schemes. It is currently on the water and is due to arrive in Salt Lake on the 4th of August. That won't happen because those dates are fictional and mean nothing. So it'll probably be about a week to 2 weeks after that, just because that's what happens. But it will be an August release, so about probably mid-August for that. We also have 2 other N-Scale cars coming this year. I'm not ready to announce what they are yet, but N-Scale will be back with Exact Rail. It's been quite the long hiatus from us.
Cool.
Excellent.
Very good.
Remind me, I need to go back over to your booth and shoot more photos because the ones I shot earlier largely turned out to be horrible.
Is that my fault or your fault?
It's my fault. I'd even love to blame the lighting in the Mountain America Expo Center, but I can't because this has been, frankly, the best expo center I've ever had a national train show in as regards lighting. I can actually shoot without additional lights.
That goes for the videos too.
Yeah.
I had a chance this morning. Oh, up here on camera.
Get over here.
Yeah.
I had a chance this morning to do a full layout tour on the Fremo HO scale layout there, thanks to Chris here, and that was something I was talking about on Ken Patterson's show that you'll see next week. Something about how Chris, I didn't even know.
Just watch the next video. It's going to be pretty neat.
Yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
Some other week.
that you had
Next
started
week.
that, or no? I wasn't clear though. Did you actually start it, or were you just part of the group that started it?
No, I started it with the gentleman Art Armstrong back in 1993. I was a teenager back then. Can you imagine? And yeah, and the rest is history. 25 years later.
Very
You
cool.
know?
It's a really impressive layout. Did you know when I was talking to, trying to remember his name now. It was Jerry Bill.
Mhm.
I was talking to
Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill. I was talking to a guy, Jerry Bill, and as he was going through showing one of his modules, 2 guys from the NMRA came up and awarded him with some awards, which was pretty cool.
You get
So-
this gold star.
It was
that
something-
the passenger terminal modules?
I think he won some awards for that too, but it was actually a different. It was HO scale. It was a cement type.
Oh, the
industry on
ready
one
mix.
side.
Yeah.
and
Okay,
it
I
has
think I got the group award.
he had a bunch of awards up there, and they were the people that came over from the NMRA were encouraging him to apply for MMR status.
Wow.
So
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
We have
That's easy to
any
do
more
around
questions?
We have a question.
Oh, very
Okay.
good. I'm going to go off screen.
It's a vending machine.
This is from Paul
Lydia?
Lydiard.
Hey, Paul.
Chris,
Yes, Paul.
other than the new appliance cars, what does Train Life have up their sleeve?
Train Life have
Back
up their
for it.
sleeve. So as some people know, with Train Life, Exact Rail's using it as a vehicle to release some schemes that we call, they're close enough schemes. There's a lot of cars that we produce that have paint schemes that are close to being accurate for that car type, but we get lots and lots and lots and lots of requests to do them. I don't want to do them necessarily under the Exact Rail brand, but we use Train Life to do this. And we recently did this with the depressed center flat car that we produced. And so we have a few other Exact Rail cars that I've actually received deco samples on that have some close enough schemes on them that will be coming this year. So I can't say right now what car types those are, what they are specifically, but there's quite a few of those coming right now.
I met Paul that year.
You met Paul? Yeah, he's been in the Rio Grande booth.
Oh, I
Or
met
the
Paul
Rio,
Lanier
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Hey,
He's-
Paul. How's it going?
Paul's also a operator on Front Runner here locally.
Okay.
Nice.
So any other questions? I mean, this is your chance.
Right, I've just prompted for more modeling type questions instead of
Product questions.
Yeah, product questions. So there's quite a big interest in products
And the box.
coming up.
What's
Yeah,
in
and
the
the chocolate
box?
bar.
Boy, that's
What
a
is-
surprise.
What is the chocolate
It's
bar?
going to be a mystery.
Yeah.
A mystery box.
Well, the biggest
Talk
chocolate
about
bar
letdown.
leads to the world's largest s'mores.
Yeah, do you have like a
Bring
that'd
out
make a
the
good
marshmallow.
marshmallow over there?
Marshmallow.
Yeah, we got our marshmallow gun on the bar.
We just need a big graham crackers.
Yeah, here it comes.
What,
True.
food coloring on it?
Yep.
Oh,
We got
yeah,
marshmallow
yes.
pillows.
Oh boy. There we
Biggest
go.
marshmallow.
Yeah.
And what's funny is there's another piece of chocolate in the garage.
Oh yeah. Put on top.
Okay.
Where's the torch?
Any graham crackers?
Yeah.
Somebody had a question earlier, which I think I understood. That's what's the toughest part of the hobby to promote as a modeler to other modelers? Like,
Putting
is there a
on-
hard part of it that you gotta talk people through or get them over? Or
Having them present what their knowledge is to the rest of us. I'm a division superintendent in an NMRA division up in Pacific Northwest region, and it is tough to find clinicians. And I know in 140 people or so in my division, we've got a big knowledge base. It's convincing them to come out and actually talk in front of people about it.
I'll tell you one of the frustrations I have as a publisher is we get a lot of requests for smaller layouts. And I'll tell you quite often, there you go.
Right
There
here,
you
man.
go. Good one.
Size
but-
matters.
Yes. But what happens is I'll go to, I'll go on layout tours and I'll find some nice small layout and I'll talk to the layout owner and I'll say, hey, how would you like to do an article for us on your layout? And very often the response I get is, oh, well, this is just this little modest thing that I'm doing here. This is nothing like the fancy layouts that are in the magazines. I don't think anybody'd be interested. That's a very typical response. So I think one of the hardest things would be for the guys that are building small layouts to stop downplaying the smallness of your effort and get it out there. Talk to the publishers, put videos on YouTube, whatever. Tell us about what you're doing, because the small stuff is actually is more available. It's, the scope is small enough that something a lot of people can do. And the problem in promoting the hobby is if everybody sees just the huge, humongous layouts, they go, I can't do that hobby. I don't have the space. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. And I know there's a ton of great small layouts out there. You just need to step forward and stop being so humble.
Actually, I have a great idea for you. How about we do the beer pong table layout, where you make the layout about the size of a beer pong table, and everybody kind of does that.
Yeah, I'm tired of the pizza box.
Yeah,
Let's
pizza
move on
box,
to
ping
go
pong
to the-
table,
let's
beer
go to
pong
the- let's
table.
go to the
Oh,
beer
yeah.
pong table. We got this going right now. I'm in.
So
I
that's
think one
about a
thing-
5x8.
I'll drink to that.
One thing I'm
Get the
always
solo
surprised
cups
at is people are so wrapped up in a fear of failure that they don't move anything forward. So many people think that there are aspects of the hobby that are difficult, and they're
That's
not
the
really
damn chocolate
difficult.
bar.
They're tedious in some manners. They're not difficult at all. You just start on it, and you can't expect to finish it in a day or in a few hours like an old shake the box kit. But if you keep at it a little bit each day over the course of a week, you've accomplished quite a bit. And it's some of that, and it's some of the fear of failure that I hear so often. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to mess that kit up. Well, why did you buy it? You just got to dive in. The water's fine.
Yes, yes.
And you'll end up improving your skill set and enjoying it along the way.
One of the things I think is very important to remember is there's another word for making mistakes. It's called learning.
Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, if you look at somebody who's spent 5 years making mistake after mistake after mistake, you know what we call those guys? Experts. So in other words, an expert is simply a guy who's made more mistakes than anybody else.
I'll give that a high five.
Yeah.
That's these guys.
Very
And
true.
is willing to keep going.
Made a ton of them. Made a ton of mistakes.
This is what we call an expert right here.
And the convention's a great place to go and learn from guys like you, right?
Conventions,
Yeah.
RPM meets, little division, day-long mini meets. Those are all great learning centers right there.
Hey, do you want in?
I want in. I want to say something. At the LD SIG meet in January in Petaluma, there was a guy that appeared actually on the video that I did of that too, and his name is Jim Providenza. I'm sure probably everybody here has heard of him, and a lot of the people watching have heard of him. And he said something at that, and it's in the video, and it struck me so profoundly that I put it as the closing scene or the closing shot of the video, which was make only new mistakes. And what he was talking about was learning from guys who have already made the mistakes, which I think is really what these guys are talking about, going to, clinics and stuff like that, because you can learn a lot from people that have already done it. And to back up what Joe was saying, when you try it, you're not going to be the same guy as Joe doing it, for example. So you will mess it up, but that's okay.
Yes.
That's what's supposed to happen until you get good at it.
Yep.
And as far as the making new mistakes part, that means learning from the people who've made those mistakes. And a little self-plug here, Model Railroad Hobbyist is a free model railroading magazine that's ad-supported, but we've been doing it for 10 years now. And so there's probably 40,000 pages of back issues. And to get access to those back issues, all you got to do is give us your email. So we'll send you some notes and tips and some ads about new product announcements and so on if you give us your email. But you've got access then to 40,000 pages over 10 years of back issues. And that's not all. I know Chris can tell you about all the magazines that are on Train Life.
Yeah, on Train Life, we've archived a lot of magazines that unfortunately are now defunct. And again, like Hobbyist, Model Railroad Hobbyist, these are all free to browse on trainlife.com. And we have issues going back to, oh my goodness, I think like 1912. Something pretty ridiculous. I might be butchering that number, but it's been a long day at the show. But there's it's impressive. I had the honorable task of scanning quite a few of these magazines, and it was amazing going through some of these. Absolutely incredible, the stuff that you would come across. So it's all free there for you to see.
I'm kind of curious. I have a question. Are there more questions on here? Or
I
can I
had
ask
Prospector
one?
models.
Hey,
I had a
Chris,
hell of a Playboy
In
collection.
1912, were they still complaining that my hobby was becoming too expensive?
No, they were wondering when dead rail was going to become the standard.
Imagine we're still working on that 110 years
Something,
later.
yeah.
I was going to ask you where there were there common issues like what we see today? Like what were they talking about in the early? Because you read a lot of it too, didn't you?
Yeah, but I scanned those like 9 years ago.
Oh, you don't remember?
I think my favorite going back when I was first starting out, there was this one book that I bought for like a $2, and it was like dollar car projects where they were building freight cars out of Strathmore and all kinds of weird stuff. Not styrene.
It hadn't been invented yet.
It hadn't been invented yet. It was all like cardstock and paper and wood and things like that. And they're doing all kinds of interesting stuff to it. So it kind of like, the hobby can be whatever you make it,
Well, I get a kick out of not that far back, but
Back when milk was 5 cents.
Right. I have my collection of magazines goes all the way back into the 50s.
Wow.
Okay. And in the 50s, they were concerned that Ready to Run was going to kill the hobby. That was in 1950s.
Thanks.
And scratch building was dying.
I've heard that now.
Yes.
With all the amazing exact rail and Anthrogenesis cars coming out.
Yes.
To pull the plug there.
There's absolutely nothing left to do, is there, Chris?
No.
Just drop it once.
Yeah.
Put it back together.
Hey, John, to address
True
the thing on
story.
dead rail, to address your comment on dead rail, two vendors I talked to today at the show, Wi-Fi tracks and Wi-Fi rails. I don't think that's right. Locofi, thank you. They're both doing Wi-Fi receivers in locomotives, doing it a little differently from each other, but both of them have dead rail setups for the receivers. And they're coming out of the starting blocks with dead rail on their mind.
That's cool.
Yes, I've actually done some work with Locofi. There's a video of me installing a Locofi module into I think it was a Kato Dash 9. And I'm really intrigued with that product. It's one of those sort of exciting things because Wi-Fi gives you some different ways of doing it, and not having to clean track, I think, is a desirable outcome for a lot of people.
You need to go talk to the Wi-Fi tracks guy. He's right literally in the booth behind us because he's got Wi-Fi to DCC, Wi-Fi signal controllers, Wi-Fi power controllers. He's got a whole layout set already done. He's got consisting over Wi-Fi.
Oh, really?
He's got a little module. He hasn't commercialized it yet, but you plug it into your DCC controller like it was a booster, and all of a sudden you're now able to use your favorite DCC throttle to control your Wi-Fi locomotives.
How do you say Throttle?
Yes.
I think I heard that.
I think he was stuttering.
Yeah, when you say the kids were amazed at getting a throttle, Joe here is handing whoever comes up to the booth a $400 throttle.
Six.
Yeah,
Okay,
$600.
well, that's with the receiver.
Oh, okay.
So the party's handing him his $400 to $500. It doesn't even have the faceplate screwed on.
Right? I might come try that. Because
Yeah. Well, that's so I can, because people wonder what's inside, right? So I'll take it off and show them. It's got 2 AA batteries and
yeah,
all
that's
that.
pretty
So
cool.
yeah,
And again, that goes to the whole making things accessible.
right. And if people don't know, some of these guys might not know what the proto throttle is. The proto throttle is it's about this big, okay, and it's basically a replica of a control stand in a diesel locomotive. So it's got
EMD.
EMD,
Yeah.
okay, EMD diesel locomotive.
First generation EMD, if we
Yeah.
want to push.
So it's got the horn lever, and
GE.
you know, it's got the 8-notch throttle. It's got the reverser. It's got the independent brake lever, and it's got the knobs for controlling the lights. And it's a hoot to run because what you do is you set the momentum in the locomotive to a much higher level than you typically do. So it gives a great sense of mass to the train. And then modern decoders have brake function. So now you can run this locomotive. And the thing I love about it is it used to be you're playing with the throttle, trying to get the sound to do what you want it to do. Now with all these settings and this throttle, I notch up to one of the notches and I can hear the prime mover rev up like I would expect to hear it rev up when I'm running a prototype locomotive. And then when I, go to idle, the prime mover drops again. And then when I apply the brakes, I can hear the brake squeal. So now the sound isn't just sort of random or only roughly approximate. Now I can actually tell what the locomotive is doing by listening to it, and it's responding to my throttle. And to me, it's great fun.
Joe, can I play with this product tomorrow at your?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
No, only you have to be this tall.
Yeah.
You have to be this tall.
Yeah, you can't be above. the
Just put your
spaceship
shoes on your
eventually.
knees and go
Yeah.
in there.
Just so I-
I want to interject again since we have a new face on the video here.
He had a question.
I had a
so-
question.
He has a question, but I want to jump in here because it's my show. It's my layout,
It's
man.
my layout,
Yeah,
man.
it's my layout, man.
It's my internet, man. I'm just-
It is.
It's his chocolate bar.
This is Alvin.
He was in the box.
Yeah, he was in the box.
This is
He came popping out of the cake. No, he actually. You might recognize Alvin because he was on Chasing Trains when we went to Promontory. He was also a quick guest, I think, if I remember right, on the N-Scale thing, right? The N-Scale convention last year.
I've been told.
At least I remember seeing him there. I don't know if I videoed him, but I want to thank him since he's here because we are at his place and he
His internet.
his internet.
It's my internet, man.
Yeah, it's his layout, man.
And drinking his beer.
And drinking his
Drinking
beer.
his beer.
Yeah.
God
It's
bless
his-
this man.
It's also his chocolate bar, by the way.
My chocolate bar, man.
Yeah. But huge thanks. Without this guy, none of this stuff would have happened. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
thank
off
you, man.
screen now.
Yeah, no,
So you have a question?
I'm
Alvin.
really happy to have you guys.
Question?
Everyone. Question. So my question is, as modelers, what are you wanting in the future?
Like, what's your dream or your wish?
Yeah. What do you want to see?
Let's limit it to one thing.
Is that kind of
Is that a personal level or is that a hobby level?
Hobby level.
Yeah, let's sort of think about it.
Personal level.
Oh, I can answer that right away.
Like, if
And
you could-
Chris is going to cringe when I do, because I
Which
want.
Chris?
Yeah, we're gonna have
That Chris.
battle of the
Oh.
Chris's.
Yeah, sorry,
Chris?
but-
Two Chris's, no
Exact
waiting.
Rail is not the company that produced the GP39-2 in GWI colors. And I want another run of those with the LEDs. Because the first one had a tsunami and its light bulbs.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's your
That's
it.
your wish, huh?
That would do
One
it for
wish,
my
and that's
layout.
what you wished for?
Hey, I'm being reasonable here.
All right, that's
If
it.
I
You're
ask-
next.
if I
Oh,
ask-
hell.
If I ask for too much, that means that I don't have to work on it as much, and that will reduce my love of the hobby. So
It all
if I
lands on
have
my
to,
shoulders.
if I have
It
to,
is.
yeah, if I have to kill my effort, then
You-
that's no fun. But I would like more of my prototypes locomotives coming out of Athern because those are sweet units, man.
Well, thank you.
I would like to see more steam locomotives of
Yes.
specific prototypes that were built between 1895 and World War One. There's just a wide array of consolidations, 060s, 10-wheelers, moguls, Atlantics. We haven't seen a good Atlantic in ages.
You know what I would like to see, and I've written a little bit about this in Model Railroad Hobbyist, but I think we are now to the point, thanks to the internet, to developments like 3D printing and those sort of things. I think we're now to the point that, we have crowdsourced, crowd-funded, we have open source software where basically a bunch of people get together, pool their expertise, pool their resources, and just put together a product for the benefit of the community,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think it's now possible to do the same thing for modeling. So for instance, take the lack of steam locomotives. I would love to see a lot of modelers who have, nobody has, or very few people probably have the expertise to do it all themselves.
Right.
But I think we could crowdsource steam locomotive models,
Right.
for instance.
Right.
And I'd love to see that.
Are you guys familiar with Casey Peters' work on Facebook? He takes Bachmann Thomas the Train Engine locos and puts on a new boiler, new cab, makes a new tender, all out of styrene.
Same
And
face?
No, completely different face. But
I take it
he models specific Lackawanna and Reading locomotives.
Really? Wow.
And they are just drop dead gorgeous.
So he's using it for the mechanism.
Yes.
He does paint the wheels though, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, he does. But if someone could do that with something that's already, in production for just the mechanism,
Mhm.
why can't the company put on something prototypic to represent an actual steam locomotive?
I wonder if they've ever been told that they've got a mechanism that would match this particular locomotive.
I don't know. I'll stop by the Bachmann booth tomorrow and ask if they're familiar with Casey Peters' work.
And if he's online, take your phone with you.
Yeah. I'll get his Facebook page up. But he's got a whole array of locomotives on his main page on his Facebook page. The lead photo. There's like 18 scratch built, basically steam locomotives there, all representing specific prototypes.
I have a question. Isn't the real challenge of that, and this probably, Chris, you might be in a unique position to answer, isn't the real challenge getting the spacing on of the drivers and all that on the mechanism right?
Right, but
Because they're not standards.
he
right?
found that the drive wheels and everything on these Bachmann Thomas the Tank Engine locos were close enough to these Lackawanna and Reading prototypes.
So is he adding
He's adding a new boiler with a Wooten firebox.
Is he adding because that's an 060.
No, this is like a heavy 280. Also a 460.
Percy.
or
Oh,
462.
so you're talking about just those characters.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
all
Thomas
the
the Tank
Okay, I
Thomas
Engine.
thought you were
Tank
talking about just
characters.
Thomas. 'Cause
No.
it's an 060, right?
No,
It would be-
it's they have a whole line of Thomas locomotives out.
I missed that.
And
That already shows
actually,
scale. They
working
run
in
well.
working in styrene to build a boiler and the different cab and different parts of a steam locomotive, I think it's far easier than working in brass. And these days, with things like Archer rivet decals, you can do a tender or a cab with rivets or a boiler with rivets, and it's much easier than ever trying to do things in brass. So I think it's more achievable by more modelers.
Sure.
Who else has wishes?
We still
here?
do it in
Dreams,
brass.
Wishes.
You'd still do it in brass.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Chris?
Me? Ooh, I don't know. I'm pretty easygoing.
You're happy with what's out there. You don't need
Hobby's
anything else?
perfect.
What he's not
at
saying,
all.
what he's
Didn't
not
you want
saying
little
is
N-scale
that
naked figures
Chris
for
is
your
in the
buildings?
position to make his wishes plastic.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if he reveals his wishes,
That's
he'll be revealing the exact rail lineup for the next 3 years.
I'm only going to produce what I need on my layout. Anything else, I care less.
Yeah.
That-
You heard
that's
it here
Jason
first,
Schrawn's theme. That's Jason Schrawn's motto and repeat.
Yep. So we're gonna have a tugboat come out next.
A tugboat in Utah.
A tugboat. That's what my layout is.
That's right.
Did Adam share? Do you have
Adam?
wishes, dreams?
Wishes.
No.
As a modeler?
You probably-
Everything's great out there.
Adam wants another beer.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, it's a matter of fact. I do.
Glad I'm driving you home, Adam.
You are?
Yeah, sure.
I actually probably agree. Steam stuff, and
There's
I always throw it
support
around.
online from our viewers.
but I want it in N scale. I don't
Yeah, they
really
said
care about
N scale.
anything else.
Sure.
It's got to be N scale. I mean, if it's going to be an N scale, it means it's already been an HO scale somewhere somehow. So, N scale steam. And I know production wise, it's hard to say, oh yeah, we're going to produce, especially steam is so much more intense on producing a steam locomotive than a diesel locomotive, or I mean,
Moving parts.
Exactly. The mechanics behind it is so ridiculous. I know I scratch build steam, so it's kind of tough.
In brass
that
or
way, but,
styrene?
brass. I like brass a little
Okay.
bit better. It's more for me. It's more forgiving.
Sure.
But in doing so, I've always thought how cool would it be to have a company where you could just produce an array of parts and like a build your own mechanism type of thing, where a guy could. You just produce a whole bunch of stuff where you could actually make whatever steam engine you wanted. It's like almost opening up the Baldwin catalog and saying, well, I want this, 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 and this. And you could easily throw it together, even up to mechanism, rods, all that kind of stuff. And I think the ability to do something like that today would be pretty easy, considerably more easy than it would have been, especially with a lot of the 3D printing and stuff like that. Because, I mean, I got into 3D printing pretty early, but I'm not really a big fan of it anymore because in some aspects, it felt like, well, the modeling is kind of gone for me because it felt like whatever I could dream up or draw, I could have. Yeah. And at the same point, in the same token, once I had it, it's super fragile. I mean, I did 50 drop bottom gons at one time, and I've lost over 30 of them, and because they just shatter. Yeah. So what I do 3D printing wise anymore is just printing patterns to cast, whether it's in brass or white metal or plastic or urethane or something like that. And in doing that, I can see how it could be pretty easily to start producing a whole line of build your own steam engine type of things. And it's kind of just one of my little pipe dreams of being able to do, even if it's just for myself. Mm-hmm. So
what about a catalog or a resource like Joe was talking about of parts that you could 3D print in brass? Because they do 3D printing in brass.
Right, and the technology is getting a lot better. Because when I first started 3D printing, I was like stainless steel was an option, and I was doing passenger cars, a few prospector cars, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try this stainless steel. Well, they wouldn't do it because the detail of the model, it couldn't do it. Yeah. But that was also when most 3D printers were 3 figures, and now you can buy one for 3 or 4 figures, and now you can buy one for 3 figures you put in your house. Yeah. So I mean, as technology keeps getting better and better and crazier, one, I can't do it because it's far exceeded what I can do, but it's also more accessible for everybody to do on their own.
Mhm.
You know, so I think a lot of people's dreams and
There you
wishes are actually going to come true, but you're going to have to push yourself to do it.
My wife should be very glad I never managed to learn CAD, because if I knew CAD, there'd be one of the silly things sitting in our living room.
You know, it's funny too, because I've noticed that everyone got excited about 3D printing, but then they found out they had to learn something different that's pretty technical
Yeah.
to learn how to create.
Yes, and no. These days, the 3D printing libraries are getting, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of models. Just go on Shapeways, for instance, and
Right,
look for N scale, HO scale, whatever. And it's like, 1,000 pages.
It's bigger than the Walter scale.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. To add that though, because I model in many different scales, and one of the scales that's getting more popular and more popular is 2.5-inch scale, which rides on 7.5-inch gauge track.
Oh, okay.
And so it's narrow gauge and it's live steam, and it's a working hobby. If you don't like to work, don't get in it, because it is a lot of work. But I've seen that hobby grow so much in the last year, 2 years, because of 3D printing and the ability to, anybody can actually make a part that's almost ready to be used, minus a little bit of machining and stuff. And with the water jet cutting and all this stuff that's coming out, a guy that would never really have the mechanical ability to do machine work or manufacturing on a industrial level is able to do this stuff now. And I've seen that end of the hobby, the bigger steam end of the hobby, just be available to people that never would have been able to do it, because their skill set lends perfectly into how we produce things anymore.
Sure. That's true.
So how are we doing on the questions?
I never thought in a million years I'd have this many modelers sitting in my house.
I think we need to
drinking your beer.
Yeah, drinking my beer.
What do we got for questions?
I'll just let you guys know that any manufacturers might want to take a look at a long list of wishes from about 60 people and what they want, and that might be a great resource. So there's so many here I can't even list them all.
You want to
And
divide it
Michelle
up,
has a
Chris? You
few
take half, I'll take the
wishes
other
as
half.
well.
Yeah. I'll take the boxers. You can take the locomotives. How about that?
Yeah, I like that.
There goes the world.
I'm back. Hey, I want to thank all you guys for taking the time. Look, all of us were at that at that show all day today. We're probably going on some 16th hour, maybe more, some of us.
yeah.
So thank you very, very much for doing this. I wanted to say that before. Are we going to see what the chocolate bar is? What's the chocolate bar?
Shall we?
What's in the box?
If we don't do it, there's going to be a lot of people complaining later.
And this
So,
is
Alvin,
Alvin
This is
Slaney.
Alvin.
Alvin,
Tell us
get
what
up.
this is.
Get up here, Alvin, right here.
All right. Okay.
Quick, raid his fridge.
Get in the
this is-
camera.
I can't. This is my layout. What am I doing?
Maybe back it up.
No.
Okay.
I'll slide here.
Watch
Yeah, we'll slide over. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry.
Take it right there. I think you could because of yes.
Yeah, just.
Take it right there.
All right.
There he is.
So this is my layout. This is
It's his layout, man.
This is someone commented a 48 by 24 inch modular. So there's two of these actually. This is number one, and then there's a number two downstairs in the garage. It's supposed to be switching, obviously. And the thing I'm struggling with this part is I don't know how to do legs for this because I'm just dumped. So the idea is to move this around every now and then.
What did the tree say to the lumberjack?
Yeah, this might be a question for you guys because you're the
Yeah, we got a lot of
experienced
knowledge in
Well,
here.
We'll leave
I
you
think
an
I got
answer.
some perfect legs for him.
ones. What, the ones that didn't know?
I ain't touching that.
Wow.
Joe says that's
Joe.
No, we have a leg system we use on the modules that we have in our booth, and I'm inviting him to come down and take a look at the leg system we use because I think the leg system we use will work perfect with these modules.
Yeah, and then I can play with your protocol.
Yeah,
Oh,
then you can play with the throttle while you're there too.
Oh, yeah.
so these guys are getting a date set up.
Yep.
A lot of
Sounds
double
like a plan.
entendres going
So
on.
I brought along some
Perverts.
buildings that are gonna go on here.
Should we put them on?
Perspective.
Let's
Should
put
we
them on.
Lay it down.
Let's put them on. Can we?
So while he's doing that, I'm gonna mention this to you
There
guys.
you go. I'll hand it
When
to
we
you.
end a live stream, we let it roll for 20 seconds because I put the live screens to point people to other videos. So if everybody's done talking, we'll just do that while he's putting the stuff on the.
All right.
There you go.
So all these are Walker's kits. If you saw our live video from the other day with the horrible sound, these are them. So gentlemen, if you will slide this right there.
Oh, is that your engine facility?
No, this is my
Over here,
this is my paper plant.
like that,
A little bit more. There you go. Perfect.
and probably like
That's your
Yeah.
office, I'm guessing.
This is the office. It's gonna go right here. It's gonna face that way though. And then this is one of those lumber buildings you throw lumber in, and this is gonna sit right there.
That's the correct term.
Industry.
I might
This
have
is
something to talk to you
fantastic,
about
bro.
Okay.
he was.
that.
Yeah.
Forklift turning space.
Is that a thing?
That's a thing.
Yeah. How else are they gonna get it off the train and throw it in the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on your era.
You might have
know.
you might put a bump out here for
For that to be back a little bit, or I can just send it this way.
What you need to do is backdate into the 20s when all this stuff came in boxcars and it was all hand unloaded up into the shed. You don't have to worry about any forklift turning.
There you
My
go.
gosh.
There you go.
There we go. With modern equipment.
Yeah.
yeah. SD70 pushing it in and just hand unloading.
That's the.
They want to know what scale.
This is whole scale. HO.
Yes.
Whole scale.
Don't ask what he did to get this.
As opposed to normal scale, which some people will declare around here.
And,
Not me.
and scale. TT.
Okay, so this is the ride, man.
Great.
Really excited about this.
Here, I'll stop this.
What are we
Thanks
supposed?
everyone online is
Thank-
thanking
yeah.
you. It's a great
Thanks,
chance
everybody.
to hear you guys.
Thanks, you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming
We have to go let
to my
CJ in.
dinner.
He's
Oh,
down
he's
at-
here.
He's at the door.
Okay, I'll send it.
Thanks, you guys. I'm gonna let it run for 20 seconds.
It's gonna be like the end of what was that show with Leslie Nielsen where the credits would run and it well it was the police squad and they would freeze and things would
Things start falling
all over the place.
or they drool or
Yeah.
start laughing or something. Yeah. Police squad.
So you ready to boogie here?
Oh yeah.
Boogie boogie.
Boogie woogie.
Yeah,
Because I've still got stuff to put
Thanks,
up
John.
online.
Go back to your
What time is it?